The human zookeeper had never been afraid of challenges. He had worked in some of the most dangerous environments on Earth, from wildlife reserves with lions and tigers to remote research stations with venomous snakes. Nothing had ever intimidated him until he received the assignment that would change everything. He was told he would care for a creature that no human had dared approach for decades. The creature's name was Korath, known across the galaxy as the most savage alien werewolf ever captured. The zookeeper had read reports and watched old holo recordings of the beast, and each file left him feeling a mix of awe and dread. Korath was enormous, easily twice the size of a human, with fur that shimmered in shades of midnight blue and silver under the artificial light of the enclosure. Its claws were long, curved like crescent moons, and its teeth glinted sharply, ready to tear through anything in its path. Most of the zoo staff avoided the enclosure entirely. Even the robots assigned for routine cleaning kept a safe distance. Stories circulated of previous caretakers who had tried to feed or groom Korath. They all had failed. Some had been scratched, others thrown against the walls, and a few had vanished entirely, leaving only shredded uniforms behind. The human zookeeper listened to the warnings, of course. He didn't ignore them, but there was a curiosity in him that overpowered fear. He wanted to see if maybe, just maybe, the stories were exaggerated. If a human could understand a creature like Korath, if a human could connect with it, it would be something incredible. On the first day, the zookeeper walked slowly toward the enclosure. The air inside the zoo's alien sector smelled faintly of ozone and strange alien flora. The enclosure was massive, almost like a mini-planet, with rocky terrain, artificial streams, and towering metallic trees. Korath was chained to a large post in the center, but even restrained, it was terrifying. Its glowing amber eyes locked onto the zookeeper the moment he stepped through the reinforced gate. The growl that came from its throat was deep, resonant, and somehow seemed to shake the floor beneath his boots. Easy? Easy, the zookeeper muttered under his breath, his hands raised slowly to show he meant no harm. He had learned early in his career that sudden movements or loud noises could trigger a predator. Korath tilted its head, eyes narrowing as it studied him. The zookeeper could see intelligence there, sharp and calculating. The creature wasn't mindless. It was thinking, assessing, judging whether this human was a threat or a curiosity. He had brought with him only the essentials: grooming tools, protective gloves, and a satchel of alien-approved treats designed to appeal to Korath's taste. The treats were made from a combination of synthesized proteins and natural alien ingredients, and from what he had learned, Korath was extremely selective. One wrong scent or flavor, and it could be disaster. The zookeeper moved slowly to the grooming station, setting down his tools. Korath let out a low rumble, shifting its massive body. The chains rattled as it leaned forward, sniffing the air. The zookeeper held his breath, heart pounding, but kept his movements calm. He knew that fear was contagious, and if he showed panic, Korath would detect it immediately. He started with something small, brushing a patch of fur near the creature's shoulder. The bristles barely touched the fur when Korath lashed out with a paw. The zookeeper ducked just in time, heart racing, and the claw left a scratch on the reinforced wall. He froze, realizing how delicate this situation was. One wrong move, and it could be over before it even began. Korath. Calm, he whispered, stepping back slightly. The beast stopped, growling softly, and blinked slowly. It was almost as if it were testing him, trying to see if he would run or freeze in fear. The zookeeper knew he had to stay steady. Every action mattered. Hours passed in this tense dance. The zookeeper moved slowly around the enclosure, never turning his back, always keeping his eyes on Korath. He offered the treats carefully, letting them fall near the creature rather than hand-feeding. Korath sniffed each one, sometimes snapping the treat from the ground in a flash of teeth, sometimes ignoring it completely. Every reaction gave him information. Every twitch of muscle, every flick of the tail, was a signal he had to interpret. At one point, Korath lunged toward the wall, letting out a deafening roar that made the Zookeeper flinch. The roar echoed throughout the alien sector, sending smaller creatures into hiding. But instead of attacking him directly, Korath's eyes never left the human. There was respect there, or at least recognition of courage. That thought gave the Zookeeper a small spark of hope. Perhaps this creature wasn't just a mindless monster. Perhaps it could be reasoned with. By the end of the first day, he had barely brushed a few inches of fur. His muscles ached, his mind raced, but there was something thrilling about the experience. Korath had not attacked him beyond the warning swipes, and he had survived. That in itself felt like a victory. Later, back in his small living quarters within the zoo, he replayed the day's events in his mind. He thought about every movement, every growl, every flick of fur. He realized that understanding Korath would take more than courage. It would take patience, intuition, and a willingness to engage in a silent conversation that went beyond words. He smiled, a little exhausted but excited. Most humans would have run screaming, but he felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. Over the next few days, he repeated the process. Each day was a careful negotiation. Korath would test him, sometimes by charging the walls, sometimes by growling or snapping at tools. The Zookeeper learned to anticipate these behaviors, to move in rhythm with the creature rather than against it. Slowly, inch by inch, he managed to brush a bit more fur, to get closer, to offer treats that were accepted rather than ignored. The other zoo staff watched in disbelief. Many whispered that he was foolish, that no human could ever earn the trust of such a creature. Some even placed bets on how long he would last. But he didn't care. Every small success, every fraction of trust gained, was more valuable than anything else. One evening, after what felt like an eternity of patience and careful work, Korath allowed the Zookeeper to touch its snout gently. The creature leaned into the touch, not aggressive, not hostile. It was a fleeting moment, barely noticeable, but to him, it was monumental. It was the first sign that this savage alien werewolf, feared across planets, was capable of something that humans often underestimated: connection. He sat back on a rock within the enclosure, watching Korath curl slightly and relax, the chains no longer rattling as aggressively. For the first time, the Zookeeper felt a strange sense of accomplishment. It wasn't about taming or controlling. It was about understanding. Korath was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but he had proven something important, that even the most fearsome creatures could recognize courage and patience. By the time the artificial lights dimmed to simulate night, the Zookeeper had learned an invaluable lesson. Bravery alone wasn't enough. You had to understand, respect, and meet creatures where they were. And sometimes it was the humans who seemed foolish that became heroes. He smiled as he left the enclosure, already planning tomorrow's approach. Every day would be a challenge, but he felt ready. After all, how many humans could say they had survived the first day with the most savage alien werewolf in the cosmos? And so, the legend of the human Zookeeper, who dared to groom Korath, began not as a tale of foolishness, but as a story of courage, patience, and the strange, unbreakable bond between species separated by galaxies, but united by trust. The following morning, the human Zookeeper woke early, still feeling the rush from his first day with Korath. Even in the quiet of his small living quarters, he could not stop thinking about the massive creature he had begun to understand. The first day had been terrifying, yes, but it had also been thrilling in a way he had never experienced before. Every growl, every movement of Korath's glowing eyes had been a signal. a clue that slowly revealed the intelligence and pride of this fearsome alien werewolf. He ate quickly, barely tasting the synthetic breakfast designed for humans. His mind was already running through the plans for today. He needed to approach Korath carefully, with even more patience than yesterday. The creature had tested him before, but today he hoped to get a little closer, perhaps even allow some direct interaction without fear of attack. He reminded himself constantly, fear would make him slow, clumsy, and predictable. Confidence and calmness, on the other hand, could make the impossible possible. When he arrived at the enclosure, the scene was as dramatic as ever. Korath was stretched across the rocky terrain, muscles rippling under the shimmering fur, eyes following his every move. The chains that held the alien werewolf were heavier than any human could easily pull, but they were enough to keep him contained. For now, the zookeeper knew that any sudden action could provoke a dangerous reaction. He walked slowly, hands visible, making sure Korath could see that he meant no harm. As he approached the grooming station, Korath lifted its massive head and emitted a low, rumbling growl. The sound vibrated in the air and reverberated through the reinforced walls. Most humans would have stepped back, but he took a deep breath and continued forward. He remembered the lessons of the first day: patience, observation, and subtlety. He could not rush. He had to be deliberate. He began with the same approach as yesterday, brushing a small patch near the shoulder. Korath twitched slightly, but did not lash out this time. Encouraged, the zookeeper slowly worked his way down the thick fur, taking care not to tug or pull. Every touch was measured, deliberate, and careful. He spoke softly to the creature, using calm, low tones. He had read that some alien predators were sensitive to sound frequency, and it seemed Korath responded positively to the quiet rhythm of his voice. As he worked, he noticed small changes. Korath's ears, pointed and sharp, relaxed slightly. Its tail, which had lashed aggressively the day before, lay still against the rocky ground. The zookeeper realized that this was a huge step. Trust was not given freely by creatures like Korath. It had to be earned, and today he had earned a little more. Hours passed in this careful routine. He brushed, observed, and retreated whenever Korath showed signs of tension. He began to experiment with small gestures, such as offering treats from a greater distance, and gradually moving closer. Korath sniffed the treats, sometimes ignoring them, sometimes snapping them from the ground with lightning speed. Each reaction was a lesson. The zookeeper noted patterns, learning which motions angered the creature, which gestures calmed it, and which tones of voice brought curiosity rather than aggression. The other zoo staff continued to watch from a distance, whispering among themselves. Most shook their heads in disbelief, calling him foolish. Some had even wagered on how long he would last before Korath attacked him. But he didn't care about their doubts. What mattered was the subtle progress he was making. Each day with Korath was a battle. Yes, but it was a battle fought with understanding rather than fear. By midday, he managed to touch Korath lightly along the neck. The alien werewolf's eyes flicked to him, glowing with intensity, but it did not pull away. The chains rattled slightly as it shifted its massive body, but there was no aggression. The zookeeper took careful note of this moment. This was a breakthrough, small but significant. He realized that the creature was beginning to accept his presence, not as a threat, but as something familiar. Lunch came and went, though he hardly noticed. His mind was fully engaged in understanding Korath. Even small details mattered. The way its eyes followed his movements, the subtle twitch of its ears, the slight shift in weight when he approached. He realized that these were not random behaviors. They were communications, and he needed to respond appropriately. One wrong move could erase all the progress he had made. By the afternoon, he decided to test Korath's patience gently. He approached with a comb, something slightly different from the brush he had used earlier. The alien werewolf's growl rumbled low, warning him. He froze, remembering the lessons of observation and timing. Then he spoke softly, inching forward, letting Korath sniff the comb before touching it to the fur. To his relief, Korath allowed it. Slowly, carefully, he combed through a section of the thick coat. The creature's body relaxed in response, a subtle but unmistakable signal of trust. The zookeeper felt a surge of accomplishment. He knew this progress would not have been possible with force, threats, or speed. It was patience, empathy, and consistency that had earned this moment. He continued, working carefully, never allowing his attention to wander. Each small success built upon the last, and he began to feel a strange bond forming, something he had never experienced with any other creature, human or alien. But Korath was not fully tame. He could sense every change in mood, every hesitation, and reacted accordingly. Around mid-afternoon, the alien werewolf suddenly lashed out, knocking over a water basin and sending a splash across the rocky terrain. The zookeeper froze, heart pounding. He did not move backward. Instead, he waited for Korath to call. Slowly, the growling subsided, the muscles of the massive body relaxed, and the chains remained secure. He realized that Korath's aggression was not personal. It was testing him, seeing if he would retreat or falter. He had passed this test. Evenings in the enclosure were quieter. The lights dimmed slightly, simulating nightfall, and the alien werewolf became more relaxed. The zookeeper sat on a sturdy rock, a small distance away, observing Korath as it stretched and yawned, revealing teeth that could tear through steel. Yet, beneath the terrifying appearance, there was something almost majestic about the creature. Its movements were powerful and graceful, every muscle moving in perfect coordination. The zookeeper marveled at the sheer beauty of this predator, realizing that fear and respect were not opposites. They could exist together. That night, when he returned to his quarters, he reflected on the day's events. The small breakthroughs, the subtle signals of trust, and the moments of calm had given him hope. He thought about the first day, when he had barely survived, brushing a few inches of fur. Now he could approach Korath with confidence, understanding that every day would bring him closer to a bond that no human had ever achieved before. He also knew that challenges awaited. Korath was unpredictable, and one mistake could undo all the progress. But he felt ready. Each moment spent observing, each small gesture, each careful step forward was building a foundation of understanding and trust. He realized that what most humans called foolishness was, in his case, courage tempered with patience and intelligence. Sleep came fitfully, his mind replaying every moment with Korath. He dreamed of the alien werewolf, its glowing eyes watching him, its massive body moving gracefully across the terrain. Even in dreams, he felt the bond forming, a connection that was growing stronger every day. When he woke, he felt the same rush of anticipation, eager to return to the enclosure, to continue the slow, delicate dance of trust and respect. The second day ended as it began, with the zookeeper learning, observing, and surviving. Korath remained a fearsome presence, but it was also becoming a companion of sorts, a creature that recognized bravery and patience in a human. The zookeeper knew that the path ahead would be long and difficult, but he felt a growing sense of purpose. He had entered the enclosure expecting fear and danger, but he found something unexpected, the possibility of connection, understanding, and perhaps even friendship with the most savage alien werewolf in the cosmos. By the time the artificial night cycle ended, he was ready to continue. Korath awaited him, eyes glowing, muscles tensed, but calmer than before. The zookeeper smiled, adjusted his gloves, and stepped through the reinforced gate once again. Today, he thought, would be another step forward. Every small victory mattered. Every gesture of trust counted. And though most humans would have called him foolish for attempting such a dangerous task, he knew that sometimes being foolish was the only way to discover the extraordinary. The Zookeeper woke before dawn, as was his habit now. His sleep was still uneasy, filled with flashes of Korath's amber eyes, the gleam of its claws, and the powerful ripple of its muscles. Even after 2 days, the alien werewolf remained unpredictable, and he knew that any overconfidence could be dangerous. But he felt a growing sense of anticipation. Each day brought progress, no matter how small, and today, he hoped to push that progress further. He moved through the corridors of the zoo's alien sector, his footsteps echoing softly against the metallic floors. The zoo itself was enormous, a floating sanctuary for some of the galaxy's most dangerous and exotic creatures. The air smelled faintly of ozone and alien flora, a scent that had become familiar over the last few days. As he approached Korath's enclosure, he could see the massive form of the werewolf lying across the rocky terrain, the chains taut but holding. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim morning light, watching him. "Good morning, Korath," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and steady. The creature's ears twitched, but it did not growl this time. The Zookeeper knew this was a sign of progress. It was still cautious, still testing him, but it was no longer reacting with pure aggression. He approached slowly, carrying the grooming tools and a pouch of treats. Today, he planned to attempt something new, closer contact. The first 2 days had been about observation and cautious brushing, but now he wanted to see if Korath would allow more direct interaction. Every move had to be deliberate, every gesture precise. One wrong step could undo everything. He set the tools down carefully and crouched at a safe distance. Korath's head lifted slightly, glowing eyes tracking him. The Zookeeper offered a treat, tossing it gently toward the creature. Korath sniffed it, then snapped it from the ground with lightning speed. A small success, but a success nonetheless. He repeated this, tossing several treats and watching as Korath slowly began to show signs of patience, waiting slightly longer before taking each piece. Encouraged, he reached for the brush. Korath's eyes narrowed, and a low growl vibrated from its throat. The Zookeeper froze. He knew that rushing now could provoke an attack. He waited, maintaining eye contact, but not moving closer. Slowly, Korath relaxed, letting him approach. He brushed the thick fur along the shoulder, careful not to tug. The alien werewolf shifted slightly, but did not lash out. Hours passed in this careful routine. The Zookeeper learned more about Korath's behavior with each passing moment. He observed how the creature responded to different pressures, different strokes of the brush, different tones of voice. He began to notice patterns. A gentle sweep along the back would calm it, while a quick or harsh motion caused tension. A low, steady voice encouraged curiosity, while abrupt sounds provoked defense. Each observation was a lesson in patience, timing, and empathy. Around midday, he decided to test Korath further. He approached with a comb this time, a tool he had used sparingly before. The alien werewolf's ears flicked back, a warning sign, but it did not attack. He spoke softly, letting the comb rest against the thick fur without pressure, allowing Korath to become accustomed to its presence. Slowly, he began to comb a small patch, watching the creature's reactions closely. Korath leaned slightly into the motion, a subtle but unmistakable signal of trust. The Zookeeper felt a surge of pride. This was a breakthrough. He had managed to gain more trust in a single morning than many humans could in weeks. But he knew better than to become complacent. Korath was still a predator, still capable of sudden violence. Every interaction had to be approached with care, observation, and respect. The afternoon brought a new challenge. A small alien creature, a mischievous species known for its speed and curiosity, had wandered into the enclosure by mistake. Korath immediately tensed, growling low and shifting toward the intruder. The zookeeper's heart raced. He knew that if Korath attacked the smaller creature, it could escalate and become dangerous for him. He needed to act quickly, but without provoking the alien werewolf. He spoke softly, moving slowly to place himself between Korath and the intruder. The creature's amber eyes flicked to him, then back to the intruder. The zookeeper remained calm, using a combination of body language and gentle words to signal that he was in control. Korath growled, but did not strike. Slowly, with careful guidance, the zookeeper coaxed the intruder out of the enclosure while maintaining a steady presence. The alien werewolf watched every move, ears twitching, but allowed the situation to resolve without incident. That moment was significant. It showed him that Korath was capable of responding to his cues, not just reacting on instinct. The bond between them, fragile though it was growing. He realized that this connection would be the key to surviving and succeeding in the days ahead. As the sun-simulated lights dimmed, the zookeeper decided to attempt something daring. Touching Korath's massive head, he approached slowly, hand outstretched, palm visible. The alien werewolf's eyes glowed brighter, and a low rumble echoed through the enclosure. The zookeeper froze, letting Korath examine him. Seconds felt like minutes, but he remained steady. Then, almost imperceptibly, Korath lowered its head, allowing him to gently touch the fur between the ears. The moment was electric. The creature leaned slightly into the touch, muscles relaxing. The zookeeper felt the thrill of accomplishment, but did not let himself relax fully. Every action had to be deliberate, every touch measured. He spent the next hour brushing and combing, slowly moving along the massive shoulders, observing every twitch of muscle, every flick of ear or tail. Korath remained calm, a sign of growing trust. By the end of the day, he had achieved something remarkable. Korath allowed more direct contact than ever before, responding to gestures and tones in ways that were almost human in nature. The zookeeper knew that this was only the beginning. The alien werewolf was still powerful, still dangerous. But he had proven that trust could be earned. Even with the most fearsome creature in the galaxy. He left the enclosure that evening, exhausted but exhilarated. The other staff watched in awe, unable to believe what they had witnessed. Many muttered that he was foolish, that no human could ever tame a creature like Korath. But he didn't care. The bond he was forming, fragile though it was worth every moment of fear, every rush of adrenaline, every second of uncertainty. In his quarters, he reflected on the day. He realized that understanding Korath required more than courage. It required empathy, patience, and the ability to see the world from the creature's perspective. He thought about how most humans would never understand such a connection. They would see only danger, only fear. But he had glimpsed something else: intelligence, curiosity, and the possibility of trust. Sleep came fitfully, filled with images of Korath's glowing eyes, the flash of claws, and the ripple of muscles under the thick fur. Even in dreams, he felt the bond growing stronger, a silent understanding forming between predator and caretaker. When he woke, he felt the same rush of anticipation. He was eager to return to the enclosure, to continue the delicate dance of trust and respect. The third day promised new challenges. The zookeeper knew that Korath would continue to test him, that every small victory could be challenged by the creature's unpredictable nature. But he felt ready. He had learned to read the signals, to respond to the cues, to move with patience and understanding. Each day brought him closer to the extraordinary goal of connecting with the most savage alien werewolf in the cosmos. By the time he stepped through the reinforced gate, he was calm, confident, and alert. Korath was waiting, massive body tense, but eyes tracking him closely. The zookeeper smiled, adjusted his gloves, and approached slowly. Today, he thought, would be another step forward. Every brushstroke, every gesture of calm, every small success mattered. And though most humans would have called him foolish for attempting such a task, he knew that sometimes it was the foolish ones who discovered the extraordinary. The human zookeeper had begun to notice something remarkable over the past few days. Korath, the savage alien werewolf feared across the galaxy, was beginning to respond to him in ways no one could have predicted. It was still dangerous, still unpredictable, but there were moments now when it seemed almost aware, almost willing to observe rather than attack. This realization gave him a cautious hope, one that was tempered with respect and constant vigilance. That morning, he entered the enclosure with the usual supplies: brushes, combs, and a pouch of carefully prepared treats. Korath was already awake, sitting upright with glowing amber eyes tracking every movement. The chains held him, but there was an elegance in the creature's posture that reminded the zookeeper why this was no ordinary predator. He took a deep breath and approached slowly, his movements deliberate and calm. "Good morning, Korath," he said softly, keeping his tone steady. The alien werewolf flicked its ears, but did not growl immediately, a subtle sign that it recognized him. Over the past few days, he had learned that even small signals mattered. A tilt of the head, a flick of the tail, the slightest shift in muscle tension, they all communicated feelings, intentions, or curiosity. Reading them correctly could mean the difference between a breakthrough and disaster. He began with the brush, moving along Korath's shoulder as usual. The creature leaned slightly into the touch, a sign of growing comfort. He worked slowly, carefully, feeling the ripple of muscles beneath his hands. It was still tense, still dangerous, but the tension was no longer entirely hostile. Korath was beginning to tolerate him. The zookeeper marveled at the strength and power beneath the fur. Every movement of this alien predator spoke of raw energy, controlled by instinct and awareness. After brushing for some time, he decided to try a new approach. Today, he would attempt to sit near Korath while grooming. He moved slowly, crouching a few meters away, allowing the creature to observe him. Korath growled softly, a low rumble that vibrated in the floor beneath his boots. The zookeeper stayed calm, letting the sound pass without reacting. Slowly, Korath relaxed, lowering its massive head slightly. He inched closer, careful not to provoke sudden aggression. As he sat down, the alien werewolf followed his gaze, tracking each subtle movement. He offered a treat, letting it fall gently onto the rocky ground. Korath sniffed it, then took it, a small but significant gesture. He repeated this several times, gradually moving his hand closer to the creature. Each time, Korath responded with curiosity rather than aggression. Hours passed in this careful routine, and the bond between them grew stronger. The zookeeper learned to anticipate Korath's reactions, adjusting his movements to maintain calm and trust. He realized that this was more than grooming. It was a form of communication. Every brushstroke, every hand gesture, every spoken word mattered. He had to be patient, observant, and consistent. By midday, he decided to test Korath's tolerance further. He slowly reached toward its massive head, palm open and visible. The alien werewolf stiffened, muscles tensing, but did not attack. He paused, allowing Korath to examine him, feeling the tension in the air. Slowly, he touched the fur between the ears. The creature leaned slightly into the gesture, and for a moment there was calm. This was unprecedented. Korath had allowed him to touch its head without showing aggression. The zookeeper felt a thrill of accomplishment, tempered by caution. He knew that trust could be fleeting, and one misstep could erase all the progress. He continued brushing and combing, moving slowly along the massive shoulders, observing every subtle reaction. Korath remained calm, a sign that the bond was strengthening. Suddenly, A loud alarm echoed through the zoo. One of the smaller alien enclosures had a containment breach. The zookeeper's heart leapt. Korath's ears twitched, and it rose to its full height, muscles rippling, eyes glowing brighter. The chains rattled slightly as the creature leaned forward, alert and ready. He realized that this was the ultimate test. Could he control Korath's instincts in a real emergency? He spoke softly, keeping his tone calm and steady. "Korath, stay." The alien werewolf froze, ears flicking, eyes on him. Slowly, it lowered its head slightly, muscles tensing but not moving. He could see the intelligence in the creature's eyes. It understood the command. Even in the midst of chaos, the zookeeper moved quickly but carefully to assess the situation. A smaller alien predator had escaped, moving through the corridors. Korath's body remained tense but obedient, a testament to the trust they had built. He realized that this bond could save lives, including his own. With careful commands and gestures, he guided Korath to a position that allowed him to observe without being overwhelmed by instinctual aggression. The situation unfolded over the next hour. The smaller predator was recaptured without harm, and Korath followed the zookeeper's commands with precision. Every step was careful, deliberate, and coordinated. Other staff watched from a distance, astonished at what they were witnessing. They had expected chaos, destruction, perhaps even injury. Instead, they saw cooperation between human and alien werewolf, a demonstration of trust and understanding that few could believe. After the incident, the zookeeper sat near Korath, brushing the fur along its back to calm the creature. Korath leaned into the touch, muscles relaxing, eyes half closed. The bond they had formed was no longer just about tolerance. It was about mutual respect and understanding. The zookeeper realized that bravery alone had not achieved this. It was patience, empathy, and consistent communication that had made the difference. Evening came, and the artificial lights dimmed. The zookeeper remained with Korath, observing, brushing, and speaking softly. He reflected on the day's events and realized how far they had come in just a few short days. Korath was still powerful, still capable of violence, but now it responded to him with a level of trust that no human had earned before. He also realized that this bond was fragile. It required constant attention, patience, and respect. One mistake could undo all the progress. But he felt ready to continue. Each day, each interaction, each gesture of calm and confidence built the foundation for something extraordinary. As he left the enclosure that night, the zookeeper felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had faced one of the galaxy's most feared creatures and survived, earning not just tolerance but a budding trust. The other staff continued to watch in awe, many muttering that he was foolish, but he knew better. What seemed foolish to others was, in fact, courage guided by patience, empathy, and understanding. In his quarters, he prepared for the next day, reflecting on the delicate balance of fear, respect, and communication. He thought about how most humans would never understand such a bond. They would see only danger, only aggression. But he had glimpsed something else: intelligence, curiosity, and the capacity for trust. Even in the most savage of creatures, he drifted to sleep with the image of Korath's glowing eyes and powerful body in his mind. Even in dreams, he felt the bond strengthening, a silent understanding forming between human and alien werewolf. When he woke, he felt anticipation rather than dread, eager to continue the careful, delicate work of building trust. The fourth day promised new challenges, new opportunities, and new tests of patience. The zookeeper knew that Korath would continue to test him, that every success could be challenged by instinctual behavior. But he felt ready. Each day brought him closer to the extraordinary, a connection few humans had ever experienced with a creature as dangerous and intelligent as Korath. By the time he stepped through the reinforced gate, he was calm, confident, and alert. Korath rose slightly, massive body tense, but eyes tracking him intently. The zookeeper adjusted his gloves and moved slowly toward the creature, every step deliberate. Today would be another step forward. Every gesture, every word, every small success mattered. And though most humans would have called him foolish for attempting such a task, he knew that sometimes the foolish ones discovered the extraordinary. The human zookeeper had grown used to the rhythm of the alien sector. Every morning, he approached Korath's enclosure with a mixture of caution, excitement, and respect. The bond they had formed was fragile, but real. Over the past few days, he had earned the werewolf's trust, but he knew that trust could be tested at any moment. Nothing could prepare him for what was about to happen. It was mid-morning when the alarm blared through the zoo. A containment breach had occurred in a neighboring enclosure, and several smaller alien predators had escaped. Panic rippled through the staff, but the zookeeper knew he could not rush. Korath was massive, powerful, and instinctively dangerous. But the bond they had built could be the key to controlling the situation. He entered the enclosure calmly, carrying the grooming tools but keeping his hands visible. Korath was already alert, muscles rippling, eyes glowing with intensity. The chains rattled as the alien werewolf leaned forward, sniffing the air. The zookeeper took a deep breath and spoke softly. "Stay with me, Korath. Follow my lead." The creature tilted its head, but did not attack. It understood him, even in the chaos of the alarm. Moving carefully, the zookeeper guided Korath to a position where he could see the other enclosures without being in immediate danger. From there, he observed the escaped predators. A small, fast-moving creature darted through the corridors, snapping at anything in its path. Korath growled low, a sound that resonated through the walls, but the zookeeper's calm voice kept it in check. "Easy? Stay calm." The alien werewolf lowered its massive head slightly, muscles tensing but not lunging. He realized that this moment was the ultimate test. The bond they had formed would be measured not in calm brushing sessions, but in action under pressure. Every decision mattered. One wrong move, one sudden gesture, and Korath's instincts could take over. He had to rely on their trust, on the understanding that it had taken days to build slowly. He issued a series of commands, combining gestures and soft words. Korath responded, moving into position to block the escaped predator without harming it. The smaller creature snapped and lunged, but Korath's presence forced it to retreat, allowing the zookeeper to maneuver it back toward the containment area. The other staff watched in amazement, unable to believe what they were seeing. Hours passed in this tense coordination. The zookeeper moved carefully, giving Korath subtle cues while directing the escaped creatures. Every step required patience, observation, and precise timing. The alien werewolf obeyed, responding to each gesture and word with an almost uncanny understanding. Its raw power was restrained by trust, by the bond that had been built over days of careful interaction. At one point, the predator darted toward a small observation platform where a staff member was trapped. Korath's ears twitched, and its body coiled like a spring. The zookeeper froze for a split second, then stepped forward, raising his hands in a calming gesture. "Now, Korath," he whispered. The alien werewolf moved swiftly, positioning itself between the predator and the staff member. With a subtle motion, it nudged the smaller creature away from danger, allowing the staff member to escape. The zookeeper felt a surge of relief and pride. Korath had not attacked recklessly. It had listened, understood, and acted under his guidance. This was a level of trust and cooperation he had never imagined possible. The alien werewolf was still fierce, still dangerous, but it had chosen to respond to him rather than its instincts alone. Once the last of the escaped creatures were safely contained, the zookeeper stepped back, brushing a hand across Korath's shoulder in a calming gesture. The alien werewolf lowered its head, muscles relaxing, eyes half closed. For the first time, the Zookeeper realized that they were not just caretaker and creature. They were partners, navigating danger together. The aftermath was chaotic. Other staff rushed to check on enclosures, clean up damage, and account for the escaped predators. Many were amazed at what the Zookeeper had achieved. They had expected panic, injury, or worse. Instead, they saw coordination, calm, and trust between human and alien werewolf. Whispers circulated that he was courageous, patient, and perhaps a little foolish. But he didn't care about the whispers. He cared about the bond, the understanding, and the extraordinary cooperation he had witnessed firsthand. That evening, as the artificial lights dimmed, he returned to Korath's enclosure for the final grooming of the day. The alien werewolf sat calmly, watching him approach, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. He began brushing the fur along its back, moving slowly, deliberately, listening to every subtle signal from the creature. Korath leaned slightly into the touch, a sign of trust and comfort. He reflected on the day's events. Today had been more than a test of bravery. It had been a test of patience, understanding, and communication. He realized that no human could have achieved this through force alone. The bond they had built allowed him to channel Korath's power, to guide it rather than dominate it. It was a lesson he would carry with him forever. Even as night settled over the alien sector, he remained with Korath, observing, brushing, and speaking softly. The alien werewolf no longer moved with constant tension. Its massive body relaxed, muscles rippling gently as it leaned into his presence. The Zookeeper knew that this bond was fragile, but growing stronger with each passing day. In his quarters later, he reflected on the extraordinary events of the day. He realized that the bond he had formed with Korath went beyond fear or survival. It was built on understanding, respect, and careful observation. Every brushstroke, every gesture, every word had contributed to a partnership that could save lives. Even in the most dangerous situations, Sleep came fitfully, but with a sense of fulfillment. He dreamed of Korath's glowing eyes, the ripple of muscles beneath thick fur, and the silent communication that had guided them through the chaos. Even in dreams, he felt the bond growing stronger, a connection few humans had ever experienced with a creature as powerful and intelligent as Korath. When he woke, he felt anticipation rather than fear. The fifth day promised new challenges, and he knew that Korath's instincts would continue to test their trust. But he was ready. He had seen what cooperation could achieve, and he understood that patience, empathy, and calm communication were more powerful than fear or aggression. As he stepped through the reinforced gate that morning, Korath was already alert, muscles coiled, eyes tracking his movements. The Zookeeper adjusted his gloves and approached slowly, every step deliberate. Today would test not just skill and courage, but the strength of the bond they had built. Every brushstroke, every gesture, and every command mattered. And though most humans would have called him foolish for attempting such a dangerous task, he knew that sometimes the foolish ones were capable of discovering the extraordinary. The day unfolded with a quiet intensity. The Zookeeper guided Korath through grooming, feeding, and careful observation, reinforcing the trust that had been tested so dramatically the day before. Every small success built upon the last, strengthening the silent communication between them. Korath responded to gestures, tones, and movements with precision, demonstrating a level of intelligence and awareness that few had ever witnessed. By the evening, the Zookeeper sat near Korath, brushing and combing, speaking softly. The alien werewolf's muscles rippled as it leaned into the calm presence, a testament to the growing partnership. He realized that bravery alone had not achieved this. It was patience, understanding, and the willingness to see the world through the eyes of a creature so different from himself That had made the difference. The fifth day ended as it began. With lessons learned, trust strengthened, and the bond between human and alien werewolf deepened. The Zookeeper had faced one of the galaxy's most feared creatures under extraordinary circumstances and emerged with not just survival, but understanding and cooperation. The other staff continued to watch in awe, many whispering about the courage and skill he had demonstrated. He returned to his quarters that night, exhausted but exhilarated. The events of the day had proven something remarkable. Even the most savage, dangerous creatures could recognize and respond to human patience, empathy, and courage. And though the world might call him foolish for attempting the impossible, he knew that sometimes the greatest achievements came from those willing to risk everything for understanding, trust, and the extraordinary bond that could exist between species. The sixth day began quietly, with the hum of the zoo's systems and the faint smell of alien flora filling the air. The human zookeeper rose early, as he had for the past several days, feeling both excitement and anticipation. After everything that had happened, the cautious trust, the moments of tension, the crises they had faced today, felt like the day he might achieve something extraordinary. He prepared carefully, packing brushes, combs, and the pouch of specially prepared treats. He took a deep breath before entering Korath's enclosure. The alien werewolf was already awake, massive body coiled, eyes glowing like embers. It had been tense in the past when he approached, but over the last several days, something had shifted. The creature now seemed aware, almost waiting, as if it understood the importance of the day. "Good morning, Korath," he said softly, letting his calm voice fill the enclosure. The alien werewolf tilted its head, eyes narrowing slightly, but did not growl. That alone was progress. He moved slowly, placing his supplies on a rock, keeping his hands visible. Every gesture, every step, was deliberate. He had learned that the smallest movement could provoke instinctual fear or aggression. Today, he planned something bolder. He would attempt to groom Korath without chains, letting the creature move freely within the enclosure. It was risky, perhaps foolish to some, but he had confidence that the trust they had built could withstand it. He had to remain calm, patient, and aware at all times. He began brushing the thick fur along Korath's shoulders, moving slowly, deliberately, speaking in gentle tones. The alien werewolf leaned slightly into the touch, a small but powerful signal of acceptance. He combed carefully, observing the ripples of muscle beneath the fur, feeling the strength and power coiled within the creature. Korath did not resist. Instead, it seemed to settle, as if understanding that these gentle motions were not a threat. Hours passed in this careful routine. The Zookeeper gradually allowed Korath to move more freely, observing its movements and reacting calmly. The alien werewolf followed him with cautious curiosity, occasionally sniffing the tools or gently nudging his hand. The bond between them was tangible now, a silent understanding that had grown from patience, trust, and courage. By midday, he decided to test a more daring approach. He moved closer to Korath's head, hand outstretched, and spoke softly. "I'm here. You are safe." The alien werewolf paused, muscles tensing, ears flicking. Then, almost imperceptibly, it lowered its massive head, allowing him to touch the fur between the ears. The Zookeeper's hand rested there for several moments, feeling the warmth and power of the creature beneath him. Korath leaned slightly into the gesture, and for the first time, he felt a deep sense of connection, something beyond fear or survival. The rest of the day became a delicate dance of trust and communication. The Zookeeper moved with Korath's rhythm, brushing and grooming, offering treats, speaking softly, and observing every subtle signal. He noticed the alien werewolf's breathing, the flick of its ears, the slight shift of weight, all of which told him when to pause, when to move, and when to offer reassurance. Other staff watched from the observation platforms, amazed at what they saw. Korath, once considered untamable and savage, now followed gentle guidance, responding to cues from a human with a level of awareness that few had witnessed. Some whispered that it was impossible, that the creature's instincts would always dominate. But the zookeeper knew better. He had seen it himself, the power of patience, empathy, and careful communication. As the artificial sunlight dimmed to simulate evening, he decided to attempt the final test he had planned for the day. He would allow Korath to approach him freely while grooming. It was risky. The alien werewolf was massive and could cause serious injury if startled, but he felt confident in their bond. Slowly, he placed the brush on the ground and stepped back slightly, allowing Korath to come closer. The alien werewolf paused for a long moment, amber eyes locked on him. Then, slowly, it stepped forward, massive claws clicking against the rocky terrain. It approached cautiously, sniffing the zookeeper's hands and the brush. He remained calm, speaking softly, holding his ground. Korath leaned into the brushing motion as he moved along the fur. The trust between them now, undeniable. It was an extraordinary moment. The zookeeper realized that the bond they had built was not just about grooming or controlling the creature. It was about understanding and mutual respect. Korath could have attacked at any moment, but it did not. It had chosen to trust him, to follow his guidance, and to cooperate in a way that no other human had ever experienced. As night fell over the enclosure, he finally stepped back and observed Korath from a short distance. The alien werewolf sat calmly, muscles relaxed, eyes watching him with what almost felt like recognition. The zookeeper felt a deep sense of accomplishment. It was not just that he had survived, or even that he had gained the creature's trust. It was that they had connected in a way that transcended fear, species, and instinct. He took a few moments to reflect. The first day, he had approached Korath with fear and curiosity, unsure if he would survive. Over the following days, he had learned to observe, to listen, and to respond with patience and empathy. Every small step, every brushstroke, every gentle word had built a bridge of trust between human and alien werewolf. And now, that bridge had held, even in moments of potential danger. The zookeeper realized that what others might call foolishness had been the key to success. Most humans would have given up, would have seen only danger and fear. But he had seen the opportunity for connection, the chance to earn trust through understanding rather than force. In doing so, he had not just survived, he had achieved something extraordinary. That night, as he returned to his quarters, he felt a quiet pride. Korath had changed as much as he had. The alien werewolf, once feared as untamable and savage, had demonstrated intelligence, patience, and the capacity for trust. Their bond was now undeniable, a testament to courage, empathy, and the extraordinary possibilities that could arise when humans dared to approach the impossible. Sleep came easily that night, filled with images of Korath's amber eyes, the ripple of powerful muscles, and the silent understanding between them. Even in dreams, he felt the connection strengthening, a bond forged through patience, courage, and respect. When he awoke the next morning, he felt anticipation rather than fear, eager to continue the delicate work that had brought them together. The sixth day ended not with chaos or danger, but with a profound sense of achievement. The zookeeper had faced one of the galaxy's most feared creatures and emerged with trust, respect, and understanding. Korath had proven that even the most savage and powerful beings could recognize and respond to patience, empathy, and courage. He stepped into the enclosure one last time that day, brushing Korath and speaking softly. The alien werewolf leaned into the gesture, muscles rippling in calm motion. For the first time, he felt that they were not just caretaker and creature, they were partners. They had navigated danger together, built trust, and discovered the extraordinary bond that could exist between species separated by galaxies, but united by respect and understanding. As the artificial night cycle settled over the alien sector, he left Korath's enclosure with a sense of fulfillment unlike anything he had ever known. He had faced fear, survived, and achieved the impossible. The human zookeeper who had dared to groom the most savage alien werewolf in the cosmos had not just earned trust, had forged a connection that would be remembered for years to come. And in that quiet moment, standing outside the enclosure, he knew something important. Bravery alone was not enough. Understanding, patience, and the courage to connect with something different, something feared, were what truly mattered. He had learned that sometimes the foolish ones, the ones willing to step forward when others stepped back, were capable of the extraordinary.